Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the 203rd episode of our first YouTube run through House of Light. I'm System Chalk playing as the archaeologist. We had a couple things that we were setting up for the next, today's episode, really. We are going to advance spices and savors, and we are going to use Sickle and Eclipse to level up Inks of Containment. So I think originally I was going to plan it with this one here, but given that Weaving and Not Working is now will be at level 5, and that Inks of Containment is the only laggard at 4, it feels appropriate to use it here now. So the first thing we're going to do is prepare the relevant texts. So for that one, we want Moon and Winter. Guess we did Book of the Extinguished Heart last, so we're on to Glimmerings. Actually, in this case, we can use the health just because I've got so much of it. So again, Winter and Moon here. Do another Confounding Parable. I want to be careful with the Fet, because we may still need it for things. But then I also need the Tryst for things. We are on to Annals of St. Brendan's. Okay, so that's 3 of the required 4. And core. Okay. So that's for, yeah, those are the memories that I need for Inks of Containment. Now we're going to try Weaving and Not Working. Now, Moth is not that easy to come by. Let's do our best. We're not going to need that much, so that's one small bonus. I can use Metal here. So we'll start with the Nectar, and we had done, yeah, an Echo of Silence, so now we're on to Prisoner Records. So again, that's 1. This one will use the scale. So it's Heart and Moth. And we're short. Yeah, we're short 1, but my saving. Let's make sure. Yes, okay. So here we'll just take advantage of opening the sky. So that will take us up to our Weaving and Not Working level 5. And the other thing that's nice about that is that gives me enough time to just sort of see where everything's at. Because again, this is one, I like doing this on the playthroughs because it does sort of help me get a better understanding of the game and just try and push out my capabilities a little bit more. But once I start getting to a point where I start thinking sort of, maybe you break this game up in 1-minute chunks, which isn't a bad way of looking at it. Thinking 2 or 3 minutes ahead and then trying to keep in mind what memories you're generating, which ones you'll have at any given time. It's very easy to get it all tied up, particularly when you're also trying to speak to an audience. So it's a fun challenge, but it's also one where I sort of recognize I can very easily get into a couple of pile-ups in terms of activities where all of a sudden I'm wondering, oh God, how do I work my way out of this? And of course, working your way out of this is where some of the fun comes in, right? That's where you're like, aha, yes, I know I can make a confounding parable. So the drawback is I don't get to read the books to all of you. But then again, I think the confounding parable ones are the ones that we read a lot. So maybe you're not so worried about hearing that one for the 17th time, let's say. But yeah, there is a certain point where I'm like, okay, you know, the hard drive's full. let's start seeing whether or not we need. This reason I make this analogy is I had 50 or 60 episodes sitting on my hard drive, so it was starting to get to the point where I was like, okay, I actually need to free up some space here. But yeah, so I'm at the point here where it's like it'd be nice to take a minute and just see where everything is for this this particular run. But we've got Rhyme and Remembrance. We have got another book. Copperlith well, it's a book, it's a tablet. What is this? A tufted fossil of silken fiber, big as a child. Something consumed and something was consumed. If we interpret its interweavings, we might understand. The meaning of this object isn't something that one reads, but rather something that one follows, until at last one has passed 3 times around it, and one finds the meaning waiting at one's shoulder. So there's the weaving and not working we were expecting. Oops. And weaving the world. The histories, they say, are braided like hair or tangled like roots. What is the shape of that knot? Funny you should ask. Any librarian can use this to establish a history and complete the game, but the Simmergist and the cartographer can win a particular victory. So, as usual, I'm going to just write this down. Now, it's worth noting here that so this is Heart, Moon, Nectar, which is nice. That does actually help me with weaving and not working, or with the words. Come on. The Inks of Containment or weaving and not working. So I'm not quite at the point where I want to use it, especially for a level 4 one, but in a pinch, that it's kind of just nice to have that in the back of my mind, knowing that if I do wind up in a bind, I do have a little bit of a get out of jail free card on that one. I don't think I'm going to worry about the desk for the next little bit. I think we're just going to keep working on the existing levels we're trying to get. Spices and Savors, and I think I'm going to use a health on this one. So satisfying to have come so far. And I'm going to take a second here just to audit exactly what skills are being used. Right. Okay. No, I see exactly what's happened here, actually. So this is going to wind up... I'm going to have to push out the Sickle and Eclipse here. So, yeah. I believe that should balance everything out. And yeah, like I said, I'll just leave the desks open for now. Thank you, dear. Cheered me up a bit. Right side sort of thing. Pip, pip. Now's actually not a bad time to bring in Wakefield. Stamp, envelope, send. Did Serena receive my invitation? It's always so very strange to be back. Thank you again for taking on the place. I'm very interested in this theft at Oriflamme's. I hope I can rely on you to be discreet. So she's got 3 forged, so basically anything goes as far as the forge books go. My suspicion, candidly, is that Oriflamme's has invented and spread the story. I can't fathom why. I need to look into the provenance and manufacture of some of these so-called fakes. So we certainly have no shortage. Oh yeah, here we go. Vinzant's Minglings. Thank you. I have a meeting there next week with someone I think I can trust, and now, I hope, I have enough material for him to take me seriously. The postmistress examines the letter and deems it sufficient. It'll go with the next post, she assures me. Preservation. The heart still beats beneath the world's skin. Now, I think I said in a previous episode, and I unfortunately lost track of it, but I believe one of the plans I had was I was going to start keeping track of how many of each element of the soul was being used during a salon. I'll try and make sure I do that in a future gathering. All right, Oriflamme's thanks you for your custom. Better now. Glimmerings, an anonymous prison diary written by a dreamer convicted of Aniric irresponsibility and confined to the Cucurbit. The prisoner is plainly terrified and bewildered by their situation and has been unable to wrangle a coherent explanation out of anyone, but the dreams keep coming and they keep writing them down. Snow, broken mirrors, half-heard sky music, flowers of white, red, and black, a blood-streaked winter dawn, the most notorious signifiers of Aniric risk, fantastically vivid and detailed. No wonder they were locked up. Their final recorded dream is of a worm jewel beneath Brandkrug Isle, which they open with a key carved from their finger bone, which, of course, in this case was the hint for what became the second edition of Cosley's work. The Locksmith's Dream Incursus, the 5th and final volume of Teresa Galmier's notorious work, which began as an examination of the parallels and mystic dreams of artisans, but became an account of her own occult journey. This volume was apparently never published, nor allegedly even written, yet here it is. The law goes all the way back to stone. The keys cannot be held or owned. This had, I believe, the unexpected consequence that those outside the law may hold and own them, but even they cannot keep them. And of course a key is no more physical than a spirit, but a spirit may be housed in a body, and I have touched a key with my own hands. So the Legions hold the keys. I had thought the Legions only old and powerful transgressors of the crime of the sky, but I begin to understand that the crime of the sky is more even than it seems, and why a twin who unites what is not to be divided might accept Elysian as her name. Annals of St. Brendan's, over 100 years of the Abbey's annals, from 1230 to 1350. 3 events of particular interest are recorded: an endowment by Ava de Braus, widower of the martyred Lord Gwilym Dhu, Black William, which enables an expansion of the abbey, the construction of the Winter Tower, which is dedicated to the Madrigad, and the death by poisoning in arts unsanctioned of Abbess Nona. After Abbess Nona's death, the double foundation is dissolved, and the monastery is reformed to accept only male novices. At this point, the ink changes. The helpful scribe explains that for the new foundation, the abbot has mandated Stargall, not Ugal ink. He outlines the differences, the uses of inks of containment techniques with a sky, not nectar context, but doesn't trouble to explain why. Sorry, I kind of bungled the reading of that. Opening the Sky, an unusual recording of Varro's Opening the Sky, composed for the coronation of the new king, Henry IX. The record bears the suppression stamp Expunge. The first movement is soft, autumnal, the second unsettling, febrile, the third is glassy, soaring, rapturous, the fourth movement is glassy, slithering, a tintinnabulous icicle rattle. The fifth returns to the theme of the third, bright and rapturous once again, but this is a choral movement. It becomes apparent, though, that these are much, much too pure and high to be human voices. They recall birdsong. They recall the sweep of the windswept sky, blue turning black at the edge of the higher heaven, and they wrench the heart in a direction the Bureau does not permit. Kukurbit Prisoner Records, 1927, accounts by Governor Collar's private secretary of interventions and experiments in the last years of the Kukurbit prison, focusing particularly on prisoners he believes might have Carapace cross lineage. 2 prisoners suspected of oniric crimes are encouraged to access their inner Carapace cross tendencies and develop the attributes of the Seglaz kind, sickle-formed pseudocrustacea. Regrettably, they lose the ability to breathe air. One dies, and Collars releases the other into the sea. Collars describes how he successfully induced an unstable carapace larva to develop into a greater form, using insects and nectars techniques in the context of considerable moon aspect to awaken what would rather remain hidden. He hopes that similar techniques might be used to expedite the moral development of prisoners. What does not bark? Alexander Propst writes warily of Calyptra, a law, principle, or society which prevents the dissemination of dangerous knowledge. Calyptra, like the planet that occludes the star, or the Doylean dog that fails to bark, can be identified only by its absence. Even the name, I think, must be a mask. Calyptra is said to make exceptions specifically for the libraries of the Watchman's Tree. Does it make those exceptions so the Hours can make use of them? Oblations in Iron, a monster hunting initiate of the Hour named the Colonel, who identifies herself as Little Sophia, records the exhibits she has rendered to the Worm Museum in the Mansis. Little Sophia has never visited the Worm Museum, or even the Mansis in person, and evidently has no desire to do so. She mixes ink, which incorporates the remains of her prey, writes her records in that ink, and burns them before the Colonel's altar. It is essential, however, to permit no drop of the ink thereby obtained to enter any portal of the body, even a break in the barrier of the skin. Should any fragment of the worm remain viable, it might enter thereby, and the hunt's ultimate conclusion be melancholy indeed. And finally, The Orchid Transfigurations of Birth, the second volume of a compilation of quasi-Rosicrucian allegories, supposedly by Robert Flood. This is in the original Latin. Flood, or pseudo-Flood, suggests alignments between the alchemical tradition of Rubidoux and the older Grail traditions, through the Pine Knight's quest for the Cinnabar Cup. Seek the cup in the birthing bed, the Pine Knight is told. The midwife at the birthing bed, to his amazement, is the Mountain Mother. In a fit of awe, he both gelds and flays himself. The vigilant storm bursts joyfully from the remains. Okay. I've got 0.5 seconds, but in this case, I'll set up the next set of books. So the only thing that we're going to need for our last level will be Heart or Moth, so everything else is free to use. And I'll do my usual search here. All right, 1 of 5. Two of 5. Used up my Fusine. 4. I think it's kind of forced my hand. I am going to have to use Perugian Diaries here. Alright, now this isn't strictly necessary, but I'm actually going to use the weaving and not working first here. So satisfying to have come so far. Improved with skill to level 5. Alright. Although I guess technically I should find some use for weaving the world if I'm going to be trying to get another Newman before long. And then at some point I'm going to deal with the various texts here. I may at some point sort of sit down. This will probably be on my own time rather than doing this during a broadcast, but I might actually try and divide out how I'm going to map these various texts to specific skills. The skill is now level 5. Its power aspects have also increased. All right. Exit containment. That one, the whist. And this is probably the point we should be sending another invitation. Yes, so Wakefield does have the knock interest. I also just want to double check something here. Cool. Happy to see the occult coinage kind of get... Well, I don't think we were ever at a point where we were in danger of missing out on Oriflammes, but this is definitely a nice little way of making sure that my stock of Spintria is able to support my my love of strange books. Librarian, I can see you. I don't like what they say happened. I don't like it at all. So we are looking for 4 knock in this case. I can almost see what happened, what really, really happened. I just need a little more. Okay, so we've already given him advice on containment, but not traveling at night. Librarian. One door closes, another door opens, and another. So this would normally be the time that I need to wrap everything up, but we're kind of already there, so I'm not too worried. Okay, there's the memories that I wanted. The Debate of 7 Cups, Distillations of Spirit, recorded by an alchemist who identifies himself in the foreword as but Sir Thomas Browne's reflection. Time is a pure flame, and we live by an invisible sun within us. Darkness and light divide the course of time, and until that course is run, eternity remains history's bedfellow. Sorrow, then, is sense's final solvent, and even a tear, should it fall now, might destroy a stone. 2 Wombs, 1 Heart, a fanciful account by Thirza Blake of the early life of the twins, their time as mortals before they became hours or even long in a dry kingdom beyond the Western Sea, which Thirza suggests might have been ancient Mexico. It is widely known that the sister was rich and the witch poor. It is widely known that the witch loved the sister first. It is not widely known that the witch was first employed to teach the sister the arts of embroidery. Though Thyrza is very probably just making up much of the story, there are long passages expounding notable techniques of weave work and thread fight. In particular, when witch and sister flee across the sea to be together, Thyrza explains how they fashioned a peace weave with heart and these arts, and then, to tame the winds, called on heart again to swaddle the thunder in the peace weave. Those Who Do Not Sleep, the mystic Broadnax, discusses the origins of the sister and witch and of the Thunderskin. The sister and witch were born in 2 wombs, one poor, one rich, across the sea. The sister was stronger in the aspect of heart, and so their survival was assured. The witch was stronger in the aspect of grail, and so they were not satisfied. When the sister and witch came west, the Red Grail permitted their ascension, but then grew jealous of their power. It lured a great musician into the ranks of its names and caused him to be reborn from blood as a heart hour so that the Grail might maintain dominion there also, but its victory is not assured. Perugian Diaries. In 1907, at the age of 18, Christopher Lapoli left Strathcoyn's household to study theology at the University of Perugia in Italy, enrolling under the name Christopher Strathcoyn. For 4 years since his adoption from a Bristol orphanage, Lapoli served as Strathcoyn's pupil and protege, but his relationship with this austere and secretive man was always complicated. His journal confides, I still think Fraser's intentions are good, certainly he agrees, but I never understood the final goal of his investigations. He was never prepared to enlighten me, and good intentions or not, I can no longer bear this dream of eyes. We've agreed to part almost amicably. Lapoli left Perugia in 1909 without completing his degree. He had long lost interest in his studies, and the latter half of the journal is concerned with his studies of Umbrian folk songs and notes towards his own compositions, which are of widely varying quality. One of the better ones, In the Marshes of Night, suggests he visited the site of Old Lake Fucinus near Ortuccio. Oops, The Mirror of Melissenth, the daybook and dream journal of Abbess Melissenth, venerated as a saint and respected as an alchemist. Melissenth speaks longingly of those we would call from behind the sky. Melissenth claims that sights and sensations arts that she describes can be used to invoke the dream of a star, when sufficient sky aspect is invoked to uplift an ascendant harmony. Right, so 0.6 seconds, we get to do our last boost to weaving and not working. I don't think I'm going to start another book tonight. I think this is a point where I want to take stock of my existing elements of the soul, but I will have other uses for the consider verb, I suspect. At last, I'm something of an authority in this. So that's it for sort of our main goal at the start of this week. The big dilemma for me, beyond the container here, would be, do I want to go for the last couple of Newman texts, or do I see value in opening that last room? Either way, it does mean that there's going to be sort of a longer period of time where we're sort of waiting for certain events to finish. Now, the good news is that we have things we can do to pass the time through reading the books, and obviously I'll use the fast forward a little bit more, but we're definitely getting to a point where we're running out of things to do much faster than we sort of have an acquisition of new things. So at this point, I now take the ironclad casket, a treasure stored by an esoteric anarch on the eve of her failed revolution. What bright treasure! I think we're actually okay to send Olympi's invitation. Oh dear, I didn't realize I had not been tending the sweet bones like I'd intended. Okay. They gave me a tour of the vaults at Oriflamme's once, you know. I don't really believe anyone could have got in, not without rather more excitement, not without rather more of a mess. But if it might turn out that it were true, well, a girl might find herself curious about exactly how the thing might have been carried off. I wonder, do you know, I think I might have just tripped over something rather smashing here. Thank you so very, darling. Very thank you. So I don't really have anything to keep over overnight when resting. That's not a huge problem. And again, everything's kind of shut down at this point now, so we'll collect the relevant elements of the soul, but at this point I want to take stock of what my collection of elements of the soul looks like, and make some decisions from there. Like I said, I may wind up making some choices in terms of what I'm doing with these remaining books before I record the next batch of videos, but I also don't, where I can, I try not to do too much planning ahead of time. It's usually more, I realize there's something that I would normally sit down and work out for myself and decide, okay, well, rather than subject the people on YouTube to sort of me silently working out where I want certain lessons to go, that. So what I mean by that would be like radical measure. Okay, well, I'm going to get another preliminal meter. It'll probably be 2 preliminal meter because of the Mystery Rose 12. A natural way of looking at this would be to say, okay, well, I'll just do this from my usual formula of saying take, something with Rose and level it up. And because Inks of Power is the lowest level, that's finally an excuse for me to level up Inks of Power. And that actually works pretty well on its own. And then the drawback here is because I now have this big batch of books that I'm going to be reading in very close succession, it might be that I wind up having a whole lot of Rose and maybe like 1 Moon. And so all of a sudden I now have, a whole bunch of level 9s because I was pursuing Rose, when in reality I could have actually taken all of the 5s and, turned those into 7s, let's say. So that's kind of that's the only... Essentially, I'm just going to take the time to see if there's any obvious paths that I can take with these. An afternoon spent profitably, reading newspapers to the curious, writing affectionate letters for the lonely, steering farmers through the requirements of the Ministry of Agriculture. All right, looking good. I guess we can cross over to the next one. I'll actually leave that here and just leave myself a note to follow up. But I think we're in good shape. So again, the vault is now empty. We've got, as I said before, we've got 2 more secrets of the house that I can uncover without opening up the remaining section. I was originally hoping I'd be able to clear out Olympi by the end of yesterday in game, but I'm not too worried. If she truly is the last one for this event, then a minute's not that long to wait. And depending how I feel, I may take the opportunity to level up. Actually, I don't want to spend too much more time because this is all stuff that we can work out. But if we are going by the standard of... Okay, so in terms of things that I can build up, it seems to me... So we've got 6 for core. We've currently got 7 for Arab, so it would seem to me that we'll double these 2 up. So if I take these 2 here, yeah, then we still have a 6. So it's a little bit like the Tryst, but I think I feel reasonably comfortable doing that division. So 6 for metal, 6 for Faust. I'm stuck. at 7 for now. Yeah, and 6 for everything else. So we'll spend tomorrow leveling up the Fet and the Arab. I believe I get one more Trist if memory serves, but we'll worry about that later. And yeah, settling, I guess the biggest question that I have right now is less about the Oriflamme heist and more about what's the best way for me to manage these books. So I do think I'm going to spend some proper time thinking about that to make sure that I don't get caught. But I do think there's going to be a couple of seasons where we just sort of plow ahead in terms of the speed, which is fine. But on that note, thank you very much for watching. I hope you all have a wonderful weekend, and we'll be back Monday to sort of lodge ourselves firmly in the end game, although something of an extended end game if it turns out the way I think it's going to. So, take care.